Hi friends, today we're doing Unit 4, Lesson 3, the Roman Gods and Goddesses. We're going to start by going over some of the key vocabulary that you'll find in today's reading. Our first word is boisterous, meaning very noisy, lively, active. Our next word is bountiful, which means plentiful, having an abundance of something. Our next word is elaborate, which means made of many carefully placed or arranged pieces or parts, sophisticated or highly detailed. Our next word is inhabitant, which is a person or animal who lives in a specific place or habitat. Our next word is ritual, which means important ceremony that is part of specific cultures and traditions. And our last word is worship, to show respect and love to a god or person. We are now going to move into today's reading. To understand Roman beliefs and religion, let us first think about some of the early inhabitants of what we now call Italy. The people who lived there and whose children and grandchildren would later be called citizens of Rome. Back then, before Rome was a powerful city, most people in the area, such as the Etruscans and the Greeks, were farmers. In ancient times, people had very little scientific understanding about weather and climate patterns. They did not have a scientific explanation for why the seasons change or even why day turns to night. All people knew was that they had to survive in a challenging and dangerous world in which anything could happen. Floods, droughts, diseases, and plagues of insects, just to name a few. Sometimes things were just fine and farmers could enjoy great bountiful harvests. Other times it rained just enough for farmers to harvest the amount of food they needed. Working the fields all day, an ancient farmer must have had time to think and ask questions about why things were the way they were. Why does it rain some years and not others? Why are my sheep healthy while my neighbor's flock of sheep became sick and died? Why did a flood come and wash away all my crops last year? An ancient Roman farmer would have believed in a god named Saturn, who was, according to myth, the god of the harvest, who existed before all the other gods. Whether the harvest was good or bad, the Roman farmer believed that Saturn had something to do with it. If the harvest was bad, then that meant Saturn was mad. If the harvest was bountiful, then that meant Saturn was happy. This painting shows a statue of the Saturn holding a scythe in one hand, a tool used by farmers to cut wheat. Ancient Romans tried to keep Saturn and the other gods they believed in happy. Romans participated in the yearly Saturnalia festival in late December to honor Saturn. This was a time of boisterous celebration with singing, dancing, and feasting all day and night. Somewhere nearby, there might have been an elaborate temple for Saturn. A temple is a type of religious building in which people worship a god. This picture shows a well-preserved temple that was built by the Romans in what is now the country of France. This temple gives you a good idea of what a temple built to worship a Roman god looked like. Inside the temple, there would have been a statue of the Roman god and an altar, or a special table where gifts could be left for the god. Priests were often dedicated to a particular god. Priests dedicated to Saturn lived in his temple and performed rituals to please him. They made offerings to Saturn, sometimes sacrificing a lamb or delivering some other foods to the temple to thank him for helping with the harvest. Agriculture was not the only thing for which the Romans had a god. In fact, some ancient Romans believed that the world was ruled by many gods, each of which played a special role in keeping order in the world. Romans were not alone in believing that there were many gods. Such beliefs were common throughout the world at the time. As you heard earlier, the Romans had similar ideas about gods and goddesses as the Greeks and other neighbors in the Mediterranean region. East of the area that is now the country of Italy, there is another area that juts out into the Mediterranean Sea. This is now known as the country of Greece. If you compare Greece and Roman cultures, you will find many similarities. In ancient days, it was easier to travel by boat than by land, and between the areas where Italy and Greece are today. Both of these countries are separated by a fairly narrow body of water that is dotted with dozens of large and small islands. Ancient peoples of Greece and Rome often came into contact with each other on those islands, or on one another's coastlines as people searched for new places to settle. This close contact brought lots of trade between people, including the blending and exchanging of ideas and beliefs. Many Romans had heard of Zeus, the king of the Greek gods, who was believed to rule over a collection of gods including Aphrodite, the goddess of love, Apollo, the god of the sun, music, healing, and knowledge, Ares, the god of war, and Athena, the goddess of wisdom and understanding. Greeks went to Athena's temple and worshipped her. when they needed help with tough problems. She was also considered to be the goddess of war, which is why she has a spear and helmet. The Romans also believed in and worshipped many of the same types of gods and goddesses that the Greeks believed in, although the Romans had different names for most of them because they had a different language. Some historians would say that the Romans borrowed these gods and goddesses from the Greeks, although the idea of many of these deities may have already existed before the Greeks and Romans would have encountered each other. The Greek goddess of wisdom, Athena, was similar to the Roman goddess Minerva. The Greek king of the gods was named Zeus. The Romans called their king of gods Jupiter. Instead of the Greek name Eris, the Roman god of war was called Mars. Instead of the Greek name Aphrodite, the goddess of love was called Venus. Like the Greeks, the Romans believed that some of the gods and goddesses lived in a palace on the very top of Mount Olympus in Greece. These beings were known as the Olympian gods. You may now move on to Unit 4, Lesson 3, Google Form.